ever since the Merrick Garland and Brett Kavanaugh situations, we've been hearing many people advocate for the, quote, depoliticization of the Supreme Court in a variety of ways, ranging from court packing, term limits, to switching the judges around with lower courts, among other things. Now, of course, we can debate all day long on how we can reform the Supreme Court, how these different things would work, but I want to focus on one argument that always bugs me when they talk about it. They want to make these efforts to, quote, depoliticize the Supreme Court. Can you depoliticize the Supreme Court? I don't think so, not really. Let me explain why. First, let's tackle the first argument on many people saying, well, we can just simply pack the courts to depoliticize it. Okay, how would that depoliticize the court? Literally, all you're doing is adding more justices of your political ideology. Remember, FDR wanted to add 6 justices to the Supreme Court because the 9 that were currently on the court were holding back his political ideology. And doesn't that set a dangerous precedent for people who you don't like politically? It's one thing people think about the short-mindedness of their political viewpoints. If you're a Democrat and you hear a Democrat say, we're going to add 6 more justices to the court, you scream, hooray, because guess who's going to appoint those justices? The Democrats. But if a Republican says that exact same thing, you're not going to be so happy about it, and vice versa. And eventually, if these people just keep adding justices to the court, you're just going to get another chamber in the legislative branch. The only difference being that they'd be appointed, not elected. Now that we're on a tirade about political viewpoints, we need to tackle that aspect of the court as well. You see, justices are not, objective computers. They're humans just like us. They're going to have different judicial and political viewpoints in regards to the law, even if they've been working in the judicial system for like 20 years. I mean, think about it. Just because you and someone else go into the same poli-sci course for like a year doesn't necessarily mean you and that same student are going to have the same political viewpoint. You might, but it's not a guarantee. Everybody's going to have many different things that shape their viewpoints, and these justices are not any different. The only difference is they have experience putting their viewpoints into action, debating on Twitter, doing silly little political videos. I mean, this isn't traffic court. There isn't objective rights and wrong. The Supreme Court handles cases that debate the constitutionality of certain laws. And the thing is, the Constitution is not cut and dry. Like every other thing in our politics, it is debated. Is it strict? Is it loose? Do we amend it every so often? Do we keep it the same no matter what happens? And the political viewpoints that you have in your head now can shape how you view the Constitution. I mean, the people who put pen and paper to write the Constitution couldn't even agree on how they would view it. What makes you think justices, like 200 years after the Constitution was written, can come to an objective consensus, whereas the writers couldn't? Need we forget, the Supreme Court is not separate from government. It's the third branch of it. Being political is kind of the job of the government. You can't ask for the Senate to be depoliticized because that's kind of their job. I mean, think about it. Ever since the SCOTUS case Roe v. Wade, literally every single Supreme Court justice has been asked, what are you going to do about this particular big issue? It's pretty obvious that people want to uphold their own political viewpoint via justices, as a branch of the government is supposed to do. My final point is something many people don't realize. People think the politicization of the Supreme Court justices is a newer development, when that has never been the case. Like, let's look back at many of the SCOTUS judges' other endeavors. Charles Evan Hughes, governor turned SCOTUS turned presidential candidate. David Davis, SCOTUS turned presidential candidate. Salmon P. Chase, governor, senator, chief justice, presidential candidate. Earl Warren, Governor, presidential candidate, Chief Justice. William Howard Taft, President, then Chief Justice. Even John freaking Jay, who served as the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court before becoming Governor of New York. You kind of get my point. The court was actually way more political back in the day, since justices were okay with running for political office and not tarnishing their, quote, objectiveness, because they accepted that ideology plays a part on how government officials dictate policy. This sentiment even somewhat continues to this day, as many people float SCOTUS justices for president, or some talking about issues outside of the robe. Now again, this is not to knock any attempts to reform the Supreme Court. I in fact feel that many reforms could be beneficial, but I'm literally just playing semantics with the idea of depoliticizing the court, because, let's be honest, that's never gonna happen. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Quora, or check out my articles on the Independent Political Report.